would be was absolutely spot on in relation to that. But when it comes to Arsenal, the question is, how good or bad a result is this? How good or bad is this for the title race? Well, of course, Liverpool benefit the most from today's results. You would say mathematically. I still think Liverpool should have wanted Arsenal to win, because that would almost eliminate City from the title race. And in many people's eyes, City are the best team in the world and still the favourites. And if they're within one win, they are capable of winning their last 9 games. Therefore, you almost need to be perfect. However, the draw mathematically does wonders for Liverpool, puts them top. The draw doesn't end Arsenal's title hopes. They're 2 points off the top. They've got superior goal difference. City, 3 points off the top. Inferior goal difference, though, to both Liverpool and Arsenal. So a draw keeps this 3-horse race alive to me. I was sort of brought into the idea at the beginning of the week that if either team didn't win, that was it. They can't win the league. But we did 3 or 4 straight facts this week's top 6 shows. I watched some other channels. And by the end of it, if you watch my preview to this game, I sort of alluded to the fact that I didn't believe it. I thought if City lost, I didn't think they would win the league, being 4 points behind both teams, if Liverpool obviously went on to beat Brighton. So I don't think this is... And Arsenal fans may be disappointed not to win. I understand that. But does this end Arsenal's season? No. Does this stop them from being able to win the Premier League? No. Liverpool, in my opinion, were the favourites before this weekend kicks off. Marginal. I said that all along. They still remain the favourites from this point, Liverpool. They've now got that 2-point advantage. But I believe all 3 teams will still drop points in a minimum 2 more games this season. So there is going to be some peaks, some troughs, some trials and tribulations along the way. Just as I said in the preview on Friday night, I don't think this is a foregone conclusion. I think a lot of people built this week up into Arsenal must win. And if they don't, it's a disaster. It was actually more of a must win for Man City than it was Arsenal, but for some reason that narrative wasn't pushed out. So I think Arsenal can walk away from this game, look, with a defensive masterclass performance. They put an old debate to bed that if Saliba would have remained fit last year, a lot of Arsenal fans believe they would have gone to win the league. I think today's performance is testament to that theory. What he did today to the best striker in the Premier League in Haaland was nothing short of illegal in 62 countries across Europe. You could end up with a year in prison in South America. In China, you're done. Gulag for you, bruv. He got put in a blunt, like 110%. He was excellent. Gabriel as well was great. I thought Declan Rice, especially in his defensive work today, was absolutely impeccable in that midfield, considering he's up against KDB and Rodri. So those elements were really, really good for Arsenal. It demonstrates how good they are defensively. And it's the key component as to why they're in this title race. It's their defense. As much as they're on course for their highest ever goal-scoring season in Premier League history, Arsenal, and that would be breaking that record 2 years running, it's that strong defense. And they did something today, Arsenal. And I want to pay homage here to the great Sir Alex Ferguson. Fergie's theory is that if you beat your title contenders at home and draw with them away, you're pretty much set to win the league. At the very least, draw with them away. You just don't lose to them. You beat them at home and you at least get a draw. And that is what Arsenal have done here with the team that most people still have as favourites to win the league. They beat them at home. They got that draw away. It's 4 points. It's advantage to them when it comes to those two sides. Now, they've got Luton in the week, Arsenal. Without upsetting the football gods, especially today on Easter Sunday, I will say this, that's 3 points. In my humble opinion, that is 3 points. You then go down to the last 8 games. Yes, they've got to come to Old Trafford. They've got to play Spurs as an example. They've got Brighton away, which has been a tough game at some times for this Arsenal team. There's many trials and tribulations to go. But I reject this idea, and I'm sure that Arsenal fans who don't like Arteta, Arsenal fans who are, I'm not saying a negative, but the Arsenal fans that don't like Arteta, the Arsenal fans that don't like Kai Havertz, the Arsenal fans who don't really like Saka, they'll be fuming today. They'll be fuming with this result. We had to win. It was there. It's the worst City team that's ever been around. That's the rhetoric they're going to push out. Rivals are going to do that too. But remember, these are the same people that laughed at the idea that you could beat City to the league title because this is big bad City. They always do it. They're going to go on a run. We're deluded as Arsenal fans, they say, because you think we can compete with this City team. They're the same people that will say this isn't that today, just on this game in isolation. They'll say this isn't the same City and we should be beating them. And the fact we can't do it proves that we can't win the league. But how could you expect your team to beat a side that you say you can't beat? It's very strange, the narrative. But I think Arsenal should be proud of their performance today in terms of it defensively. I don't think this is a negative result. I don't think this is going to damage this. Yes, a win would have been better. I'm not denying that. The win would have been better. So there can be room for disappointment. But I don't think Arsenal fans should be throwing baby out with the bathwater, kicking off and going crazy, panicking over this result. And the same for City to a certain degree. You know, they didn't lose. They're only 3 points off the top. It's one win, maybe one win and maybe they might need 2 wins from this point because their goal difference is a little bit behind. But one big win for City, go and win your next game 5-6-0, and it really closes that gap. And they have the capabilities of doing it. But as I say, I don't think this is bad for Arsenal. It was a defensive masterclass. That is the strongest sort of string to their bow. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. Saliba was given the man of the match. I would have given it to Gabriel personally. I thought he was phenomenal today in every single which way. The way he fought with Haaland was great. I thought Rice also deserves an honourable mention. But as I did say earlier, the negative around Arsenal today, the constructive criticism, has to be around the lack of pace. The team just didn't have enough pace on that counter-attack. And I thought that Martinelli, I thought Trossard and Partey all should have come on at least 10 minutes earlier than they did in the game. That extra power, that extra pace, I think could have opened up City on those counterattacks, which they are susceptible to a few more times, which could have led to that goal. Other than that, I don't think it was that bad of a performance. Now, individually, there was some people. Look, Saka was poor today. I said at the top of the video, and I wanted to address this. I think he's playing lame. I think there's a, what I mean by playing lame is I think he's got an injury. He doesn't look himself. The amount of times I see him limp off, and then the next game he's playing again is crazy. And I know Arsenal fans won't want to hear this, but I think he needs some games on the bench. At the very least, let someone else start. There's something physically wrong with him. There just is. You know, he didn't walk off frustrated because he wasn't doing it. He's limping off again. And I swear he's limped off about 4 or 5 times this year. Didn't play during the international break. It's another criticism of Arteta that I would say, stop playing him if he isn't. I know you can't always be 100%, but there's clearly something wrong with him in relation to that. There just is. And if some people will say it's an excuse and he was just poor, it's fair enough. But let's not ignore what we're seeing with our own eyes. The amount of times he's come off limping, the amount of times that Arsenal fans have panicked over his fitness. He comes back, and I get the dedication. I get he's putting his hand up and he's saying, I'll play. However, I think he needs a little bit of a rest. Even if it's just 2 or 3 games where he's on the bench and coming on, maybe that will help him. I thought he was poor. I thought Kai Havertz didn't have the greatest game either. I thought Kai Havertz just looked a little bit isolated today. Maybe it was a lack of pace that was around him as well. And I would have made some changes on that a little bit sooner. Terry, what about Phil Foden? Yeah, I mentioned Phil Foden earlier. I thought Phil Foden was, again, Foden, Haaland, and KDB to me, those 3 had really poor games for City today. All of them. They were just, the 2 subs were really poor as well. But they're just so ineffective in what they did. The other players, Rodri's, Bernardo Silva's, as an example, I thought did like a good job. They did what they were meant to do. It was what was around them that really let them down in many respects. But at the same time, I could be discrediting the Arsenal here by saying, well, actually, maybe it was the Arsenal players that just nullified them. Maybe they weren't that bad. It was just Arsenal's defensive performance was so good.